Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you tonight to a very impressive young lady. Vanessa Santaguida is her name, and she runs a fascinating business, which is educating people that have been trained for a legal degree outside of Canada on getting their legal designation in Canada. And she's got like one of the most impressive resumes I've seen in a long time. And she's got an interesting personal story as well. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to find out what she's all about and how she got to where she is. So Vanessa, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for having me today. I was really excited about it, and I'm excited to discuss what I do and some of the philosophy behind it all, if you will.
Okay, well then let's start off the top, telling us what is it that you do? You train people that have been educated as lawyers outside of Canada to becoming a lawyer in Canada and getting their conversion to Ontario legal abilities. Is that correct?
Yes, essentially that is what it is. That's the foundation of what I do. So students or lawyers who have been trained in other jurisdictions, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in India, whether it be in Korea, all over the world, if they want to practice law in Canada, there is a process, and it's quite a lengthy process. It first involves being assessed by a committee called the National Committee of Accreditation. And essentially, your assigned exams are called equivalency exams. And once you complete those equivalency exams, you can embark upon the lawyer licensing process.
And you do what?
I assist those individuals in this journey. So when they come to Canada and they've made that decision, or even prior to coming to Canada, once they've made the decision, I want to now practice Canada in law, what do? I'm there at that initial point. I'm there to guide students, mentor them through the process, essentially inform them what are the steps they have to take. I'm there to help educate them. I provide materials for the exams. I provide lectures on the various exam topics. And I recently, last year, expanded my business to also assisting students on the journey in terms of the lawyer licensing process. So once they're done those NCA exams, they now will embark on what a lot of people know as the bar exams. And there's an articling process. So that is specific to Ontario. So it's province specific when we're looking at the bar licensing process, lawyer licensing process. But when you're just converting and you're writing the equivalency exams to come to Canada and basically equate your degree, that is called the NCA process. And that's basically national. So it's Canada-wide.
Now you've got a Bachelor of Business, you've got a law degree, and you've got a PhD.
Well, actually, what I've done is I think with everything, when I discuss topics, even with any student that I've ever had, because I've taught everything from kindergarten up to grade 8, up to grade 12, to university, to teaching in colleges, to now adults throughout this NCA and lawyer licensing process. And I always focus on the journey, right? Not so much the destination. I think that a lot of young people get caught up with the conventional media standards or expectations of you go to school, you graduate high school, then at 18, 19, you go to post-secondary, whether it be college or university. Then you graduate, you get married, you have children, you start your career. I didn't do that at all. I started off with my BBA, so that was the first degree I embarked upon. I thoroughly have always enjoyed school, and I've been a very serious academic. And I've always wanted to be a lifelong academic, always remaining in the realm and ambit of education. Then I went on to do my teaching degree at OASE. And when I did it, it was 1 year compared to now they've extended the program. I completed that, and I had some experience teaching in high schools under the umbrella of the university program. It's called a practicum. Then I did my MBA at McMaster, the DeGroote School of Business. Then after that, I started a PhD. In the midst of the program, I decided it wasn't for me. It wasn't a good fit for my personality, for what I really truly wanted out of life.
What was the PhD in?
I was in marketing and consumer behavior. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It was very fascinating. I used to actually, at that same time, I started a small marketing business as well. And then I decided to just turn the page to a whole new chapter. And I went to England and I pursued my law degree. So
Fascinating career progression. And through all that, you decided that now you want to teach people in law effectively.
yes. So what I essentially did was, it was a conglomeration, so an amalgamation of my experience, my educational background, and my overall desire of what I truly wanted from life. And I think that that really is what propelled me and enabled me to focus, was first saying, what makes me happy? I think when it comes to success, first figuring out how you define success and what makes you happy is your starting point. And then how do I make that happen? And obviously, I think I told you I have a son, and I wanted to be able to be with him, give him as much time as I could. And I knew that I needed an option that made me happy, but that also met his best interests and what I really wanted for my life. I knew that I had to come up with something that was non-conventional, kind of step outside the boundaries, if you will.
So you created your own business.
Yes.
In education. Fascinating. Sounds great. We're going to come back after a 2-minute break for some messages and have more conversation with Vanessa about exactly how she figured out what would work for her and what her passion was. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I love meeting people that have got really fascinating different careers and that have figured out what their passion is and what works for them with their own, life. And so many of us are stuck in like a 9-to-5 corporate life that may not be what we want, and or a after 5 o'clock life that's not what we want. And our guest tonight, Vanessa Santaguida, has an unbelievable educational background. So she's got a BBA, she's got an MBA, she's got a partial PhD completed, she's got a law degree, and she's got a son. And I guess it sounds like partially because of the son and the life that you wanted to have with him, you reinvented your life and invented a business that fit your life with him. Is that correct?
Yeah, not only that, that truly fitted my passion, that is very, very fulfilling to me on so many levels. It really does. It grants me flexibility, but more than that, I'm allowed to pursue what I'm passionate about and happy about. And every day is an exciting new chapter, exciting new day where I get to help students on their journey and watch their lives simultaneously be fulfilled, right?
How did you come to this conclusion that this was your passion? How did you find that?
So as I was kind of mentioning before, I think that we're told throughout life how we're supposed to live our life all the time, whether it's through the media, whether it's through family, whether it's through friends. It's that very linear approach. It's you go to school, you start your career, you get married, you have children. And I did everything mixed in a very non-chronological order, right? So I looked at it as your 20s are a time for exploration. So many people buy into this idea that I go to university, I spend 4 years studying accounting. Now, for the next 40 years, I need to be an accountant. Regardless if I like it or not, if I enjoy my career, if I enjoy the work, I have to do that. Now I'm bound by the profession of accounting. And logically, my father always said to me, about having vision. He says, I have vision. You have to see the forest for the trees, or you have to kind of see the bigger picture perspective. And I thought, the last time I checked in 2019, the average Canadian retires at 64. So can you imagine you spent 3-4 years of your life in school to now spend the next 40 plus years, 45 plus maybe, doing something you hate, that you're miserable doing every day, day in and day out. And then we read about depression, anxiety, people being unhappy with their careers. And of course, because you're still really, and I hate to say, a baby, but when you're in your young 20s, you're still so young. There's so much more time ahead of you. And I know that this isn't going to fit for every person. It's going to be, in law, we always call it a case by case basis, right? But every person is unique. Every individual is unique. Happiness is not standardized. It's not a one size fits all for everyone, right? Some people are lucky enough, they go to university at 18, they find what they love, and the rest of their life, they're immensely happy because they're doing every day what they enjoy. But I think for the majority of people, they sell themselves short due to this anxiety, this pressure to, the clock's ticking. You got to get married. You got to have kids. But no one ever questions, well, why? Who wrote? Where is this codified program? Step by step, I have to do this. I need to live my life in this linear fashion, right? I never looked at it like that. So I spent my 20s to discover, what do I really want to do? What is going to make me happy every single day? And it took time. It took points of failure, points of, anxiety or disappointment in that, okay, I'm 25. At 25, aren't I supposed to be married? Aren't I supposed to be, planning for children by my late 20s? At 25, I started another degree. But at actually 27, I left to England to start a law degree. So it was very untraditional. A lot of people thought, wow, that's so risky. But I didn't see it that way, because I saw, well, the next 30, 40 years, I'm going to really know what I want to do. And I'm going to be very happy about it. And I'm going to be very fulfilled. And I'm gaining experience, right? Because with time, we gain wisdom, right? And I'm still have a lot of wisdom to gain. So that was kind of the path and the trajectory. And I always knew I loved education, but I wanted to do it in a different way, in a way that wasn't confined to the borders of, a systemic system, in a way that I could teach and be passionate about something that I enjoyed. And I do enjoy the law. I really loved being in law school. I always participated, whether it was voluntary to help other students. I took part in the mooting competitions. And then eventually, when I came back and I went through the NCA process, I self-studied, and I realized there was a gap in the market in terms of resources. And I slowly started to develop resources. And the business started very slow and steady. I was pregnant with my son during writing these exams. And up until 7 months, I was writing exams. And I remember I would be at the center. I think it was at the Toronto International Center. And I would walk in. I walked in fully pregnant, sitting down for a 3.5, 4-hour exam. And when I had my son, everyone said, well, you're going to take the year off. You're not going to write the bar exams. They're 70-hour exams. What are you going to do? You have a newborn. You just gave birth. But I felt that I was on that. I had that momentum and I didn't want to stop. So I said, I'm going to do it. And I wrote the bar exams and I completed that. And once I had my year of mat leave, I started articling, and eventually I became licensed as a lawyer. And instead of practicing, which wasn't going to really grant me a lot of time with my son, working 10 to 12 hours a day at a law firm, I decided to go full in with my business and grow it exponentially to helping students all over the world globally, and to really extending my services across the board in terms of subjects and topics. And beyond resources, just content wise, I also started teaching and lecturing via Zoom. And it just grew and grew. And as time went by, I just became more passionate about it. And every day I'm learning, and I find I'm blessed because I'm teaching people, but I'm learning so much from them in return.
What a great story. Just out of interest, if one wants to use your services to get the conversion studies done, what kind of ballpark number does that cost?
So it ranges. If it's just for materials and contents, packages are either for notes, they're $65, they go up to $150. And then you can have an add-on. For instance, you can add on lecture recordings, you can join live classes, and those are a little bit more expensive. Those range anywhere between $250 to $300.
So if someone has a law degree from the UK and wants to do all the studies that one needs to do to get the law degree recognized in Canada, how much is it going to cost?
It really depends on the individual. Some students feel very comfortable learning content. Some will rely on, so there's textbooks that are prescribed, and I always endorse the recommendations, the prescribed textbooks. What I offer will supplement that. And some students are comfortable just doing that, purchasing textbooks. I find a lot of students, to expedite the process, will acquire my resources. And so if they want the basic resources, it will also depend on the number of exams they've been assigned. Typically, if you've gone to the UK, they have either a 2-year program or a 3-year program. If you've done the 3-year program, you're usually, so this is usually, assigned the core courses. There's 5. And if you were to just use my basic materials, that would be about $300-400, covering all 5.
$3,400.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a website that people go to access your services and find out more about you?
Yes, it's called ncamentor.com. And
ncamentor.com.
I also have a Facebook group. It's quite a big group. There's a couple thousand students on it, and it's just, once again, NCA Mentor.
Awesome. And I understand that part of the complication of your whole process is that you're a single mom. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, lucky enough, I do have a partner now, and he's wonderful. And just as my career was non-conventional and linear, so was my love life. I'm very blessed in that I have a unique circumstance that my son's dad and I are amazing friends. We never had to go through the litigation process. And one thing is to note is the family law rules were changed last year in 2021. There's a lot of encouragement when it comes to the family law rules in terms of promoting settlement, right? We're promoting resolving issues instead of going to court and going through the more adversary litigation process. And I'm very lucky I didn't have to do that, because my son's dad is great. We have a great friendship. And it's been my son and I for a while. He does live with me full time, but I do have a partner now who has a daughter, and we have this beautiful modern family. And so I've been very blessed in that regard. But when I did start this process, when I started building the business, especially during COVID, my son's daycare shut down, and he was with me 7 days a week. I had nowhere to bring him. I couldn't bring him to daycare anymore. So it was, I think he was about 1.5, 2. No, it was before he was 2. It was 1.5, where COVID, there was the first COVID cases that started coming out. Daycare got shut down. Everybody was in a frenzy, right? Not knowing what was happening, a lot of uncertainty. And basically, as I was trying to work via Zoom, develop content, work in my home office, right? Which is essentially my kitchen table. While I was doing all this, I had a 1.5-year-old running around who is also really trying to adapt to these circumstances as well. So it was a learning curve for both of us, but he's a wonderful little boy, and he's just always inspired me from the very beginning. He's been like a source of my inspiration. So,
it's interesting. You've had this sort of varied career with an undergraduate business, a graduate business, a somewhat completed PhD, then a law degree. Then you get pregnant and have a child during your conversion studies, and then you decide to launch this business, and you launch it at the beginning of COVID with the complications of childcare and COVID, etc. How did you figure out what you wanted to do? How did you keep your head on straight? How did you find your passion? What was it? Was it did you go meditate? Did you have a light bulb in a shower? Was this something that your father inspired you for? Tell me a little bit about what the secret to your success is in thinking through what you want to do in life.
So, you know what? I think a lot of my work ethic and my focus in terms of a career, it all emanates from my parents. Those are always the roots for everyone. I mean, I don't want to say everyone. That's kind of it's once I get, as I said, it's case by case basis. But I'm very lucky that I have extremely hardworking parents who have a sound moral compass, who have always encouraged us to do what's right, walk along the path of righteousness, always work hard for what you want, always push yourself to do your very best. And whatever flows from that, well, you can say, I did my best. At least I can say I tried, right? A lot of it is, a lot of my success is due to their support as well, like their support, their encouragement. There was a lot of times where, when my son, for instance, was colicky and he was 1.5 and I was working throughout the nights. I remember some nights I would work until 2 a.m. And because I have clients from countries all over the world, from South Africa to China, the hours are varying everywhere. The time zones are different. So at times when I'm teaching somebody, I've taught people at 3 a.m. on my schedule, and for them it's midday. I had breakdowns. I had moments where I thought, oh my goodness, can I do this? I am a religious person, so I turn to God. But I also feel that, I take things in bite sizes if I can, right? Don't try and consume the entirety of something. Take things day by day. There's lots of quotes that I also rely on. I'm a quote person. I love reading quotes. I get so much inspiration from them. So apart from my parents, both who are very hardworking people who have always inspired me, who have always been very family oriented and always there for us, I lean on my religion and like I said, quotes. There's one quote that I really love, and I'm not going to say it verbatim because it's something along the lines of, you don't have to make everyone proud, although I always want to make my parents proud, and I think a lot of us do. But you don't have to please anyone. You don't have to please anyone in the world. Social media puts all this pressure on us for what? It's really, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant, right? We shouldn't do things for our parents, for social media, for our friends, for who cares what we think. You shouldn't care about what anyone thinks. The only two people you need to impress is I think they say your 5-year-old or 10-year-old version of yourself and the 65-year-old version of yourself. If you can impress those two versions of you, you've made it. And I broke that down to, something, I broke it down in a deeper way. And my boyfriend says, I'm an overthinker. I overanalyze. So I broke it down to the younger version of yourself. It's a source of innocence, right? And pride in that what you're doing is moral and ethical, right? It's righteous. So whatever you're doing, can you look at yourself in the mirror every day and be proud? Are you doing something that's helping people? My dad has always said, at the end of the day, life is about other people. It's not even, what really makes people happy is about others. And I'll actually get back because there's another quote on that. And then the 65-year-old version of you is wise. That 65-year-old version of you has obtained years and years of experience and wisdom, which is something you don't have when you're young, right? And if you can look at that age upon yourself at this point in time, so let's say I'm looking back and I can look upon myself with pride or, happiness or a sense of contentness, then really I've done well. And that's the only two people in the world who I need to impress. So I kind of think about that, and that gives me inspiration, and it makes me less anxious to please anyone, really.
We're chatting tonight with Vanessa Santaguida about her business, about her life, about her passion, about how she found her passion. We're going to take a break and come back in just 2 minutes with a little bit more conversation with Vanessa. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Sagan and 60. We're having really an enchanting conversation, or an interesting conversation with an enchanting young lady, Vanessa Santaguida, who is a educator of people that have got law degrees from outside of Canada that want to take their conversion studies and conversion exams to make it a Canadian degree. And she really created this business out of necessity to a certain extent, but also because of a passion that she had for educating people and the law. But also that she wanted to spend time with her young son. And it really is a It's a fascinating story that Vanessa shared with us. I got to ask you, Vanessa, with someone that is as articulate as you are, with 4 degrees, 2 business degrees, an undergraduate and a graduate business degree, portion of a PhD in marketing and communications or whatever it is you told me, and then a law degree. Some guy has got to be pretty special. That's going to be able to like what tell us a little bit about your boyfriend here.
My boyfriend. So his name is Matt. It's a very interesting story.
Has he got like 4 degrees too?
No, he is. So it's so interesting. I don't even know how to explain it really. We've known each other for a very long time. He worked with my dad. So my dad used to have a construction company, and now he does private lending. So if anybody needs a mortgage, a private mortgage during this time, his business is Senko Capital. So basically, when my dad had a construction business for a large portion of his career in life, Matt worked with him. Matt was a pro hockey player at one point. Our fathers were friends. My dad loves hockey. He's a huge hockey enthusiast. And Matt's father and my father played hockey together. And Matt's dad was a boxer, like he was a fighter, also like a pro level. His mom was an athlete as well, and she still is, well into her 60s. And so Matt was working with my dad. He worked with my dad for well over a decade. We just saw each other in passing, but we constantly passed, like our paths crossed. So when my dad had his business, I worked with him for a bit, and I was in the office, and we would have lunch, for instance. And he was in a relationship. Was in a committed relationship for a very long time. He was married. He has a daughter. And him and I, we just constantly, like I said, we're seeing each other throughout. Oh, it's been over 15 years now. He did all the renovations, for instance, at my parents' house. So when he would come and I was living at home, I would see him. Hi, how are you? Then when he worked at my dad's office and I did, we would see each other on job sites. I would go with a construction hat and on site, and we would run into each other. Then after that, when I bought a house, my dad said, can you go do the renos? And he was in my house working, fixing the backyard, fixing the floors before I even lived in the house. He did renovations for my aunts, everyone in the family. He knows, I think, more of my family than I know. So he was so loved by my family. Literally, my dad has referred to him as a son. And, it's one of those things. We've been in each other's lives. There wasn't that attract, like, not to say like we find each other attractive now, obviously, but it was very just platonic this whole time. And obviously I had a child, he had a child, his relationship didn't work, my relationships didn't work. And we came together in the last year, and basically we just met up and kind of realized, wow, we have all the same goals. We want all the same things. And I'm going to go back to quotes, and I'm going to say, not that I'm not a very, I love love. I love the idea of love, but obviously I am also a rational person. I'm a strategic person. I ground some of my decisions in logical thinking. I heard recently someone say, love is not enough. Not that it's not great, but you need a foundation for love to grow. And something that happens a lot of times, as we know, there is a plethora of divorces, right? Over 50% of people get divorced. Why is that? What's going on, right? There's lots of questions as to why that might be. I'm not an expert in that. I'm not here to delve into that topic and go off on that tangent. But I think that, having that solid groundwork, which is something my parents always told me, and having those common goals is so essential. And then love grows and emanates from that and flows from that. Because if you have two people who are in love, and there's a lot of lust, obviously, at first, but they don't have any of the same goals. They look at their future, and one person says, I want to travel, and, I want to live downtown, and I don't maybe want too many kids, or I don't want any kids. And the other person says, I'm a homebody, and I want to have 4 or 5 kids, and I want to be that person who's involved in all their activities. Even if those two people have love, eventually, like any relationship, what happens? There's ebbs and flows. Relationships take work. We all know that, like everything in life. Life is work. That's something that people, it's a fallacy to think that life is rainbows and butterflies, I think, for the most part. So what I truly believe in is that if you have that groundwork, in that you look, and this is what happened with Matt and I said, wow, this person was in front of me the whole time. And we have such similar goals, and our values are the same, and our work ethic is the same. And he's a very determined person, and he's so loving, and he's so affectionate. And not all men are like that. In fact, my parents once said to me, men are not like that. What are you looking for? This Prince Charming? You got to lower your expectations. Having somebody who's going to be romancing you and telling you he loves you every second, and, overwhelming you with, I don't know. Well, anyways, he's like that. So basically I realized, wow, we both love kids. We both want a big family if, God grants us that ability, but we already have, he has a daughter, I have a son. We both believe in spending a lot of time with family and working hard to achieve goals. And our idea of success is unique and it's similar. And everybody has a different idea of success. And I'm going to just make a comment about that. So when I went into law and I thought I want to be a lawyer, I had to dig deeper and, well, why do I want to be a lawyer? What is it about being a lawyer? Is it I watched Suits and I thought it was status and, oh, it looks cool and fancy and sophisticated. But then I broke down, well, what do I really want in my life and how do I assess or determine success? And success for me I'm not the type of person really who wants to take fancy vacations or travel everywhere every month. My parents love traveling. That is important to them. There's different things that are important to me, right? And finding someone who values the same things, who defines success the same way is rare and crucial. And then from that basis, you have love that just grows and grows and grows. And what is so important about that foundation, I think, is that when you have those ebbs and flows, you're brought back together by those common goals, because every time a common goal is achieved, I think that it brings you back, right? It brings you back to that, oh, wow, we if you want to have a big family and you have all these children and then grandchildren come into the picture, you're fulfilled with all this happiness, right? Of, oh, now we have grandchildren. If you're an individual who doesn't want kids and doesn't want grandchildren, then it doesn't make much sense to find a partner who wants those things. And all you have to commence the relationship is lust, right? So anyways, with us, I think that so many things clicked, and it was a moment of, oh my goodness, you were in front of me the whole time and we're a perfect match. And I'm not like that easy to date, I don't think. We haven't had one.
Why are you not that easy to date?
I say that in that I have expectations. I'm not overly demanding, but I keep a very clean household. I keep a very rigid, kind of organized household. And I expect, someone else to kind of mirror to some extent that type of organizational structure. And I think it just comes in, it's just really about, it's about finding someone who has similarities. Okay, similarities. I know they say opposites attract. I don't know if I believe how opposing two people can be, and for them to actually have.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like you've got very similar values, but very opposite educational backgrounds.
We do. Right. So that's very true. So we're opposites in that regard. But that's not really important to me. I think what's important to me is that he is an ambitious person. He's so hardworking. He's very focused on family, and he's just the most righteous, moral, ethical person I've ever met. He really is. And that to me is so important. And some of those values, I think, are similar to my father. And that's, a whole other topic when it comes into, philosophy and theories on that end. So
you were looking for someone like your father?
I don't think I was looking. I think that, him and my father, once again, are very different, but I think there's the groundwork there is very similar. And my dad makes the joke of, well, of course you like him. He was under my, I want to say like I was his boss, or he was working with me for a decade plus. So he's going to have a lot of the values and maybe some of the behaviors that I have, right?
You seem very wise for someone of your age. Where do you think that wisdom has come from?
Experience and so much failure, like tons of downfalls, tons of, falling flat on my face and having to pick myself up again.
Okay, so that's a good question. And you don't seem like a person that's had a lot of failure. You seem very up and personable and positive. How did you deal with all those failures? Where does the resilience come from?
I think that's like, I don't want to say it's innate. I think that we have it all within ourselves. When I was really young, for instance, I was born with juvenile arthritis. I had a couple of ailments. My mom said, you were always in and out of the doctor's offices, hospitals. I was born with a couple of conditions. Then in my teenage years, it was really rough. I used to be in figure skating, and I had a partner, somebody that I skated with, who was also my coach's son, who passed away. And I looked at him as one of my really good friends. And so at 14, 15, I experienced this loss of someone close to me that was very eye-opening. It was also, it made me question life, and I was very angry, right? I became very segregated during high school at certain points, just ups and downs. And then also when I kind of couldn't figure out what I want to do in my 20s, I kept reverting back to the 20s. I'm in my 20s. I have time. This is a journey. I made a mantra of telling myself. So affirmations, for some people they work, some people they don't. I don't know if at the time I called it affirmations, but like anyone, I had a lot of downfalls in my life, relationships that didn't pan out, relationships that stemmed 6 years where I was on that trajectory of getting married and having to, one of the hardest things, but this all goes back to vision, is when you're with somebody and you are 24, 25. And I read an article, apparently, I think it's statistically, they say you don't have very many people getting married in their early 20s, then it goes drastically uphill, mid to late 20s, everybody's getting married. And then it trickles off again in the 30s, 35. And they said, what is the reason for that? It's not just everybody's meeting the love of their life in their mid 20s to late 20s. No, it's once again, the standards of society. They said if people were really getting married when you were finding your partner, it would be evenly spread throughout people's stages of life. But it doesn't happen like that, right? So when I dated somebody for a very long period of time, I realized the relationship from the outside, everybody thought it's amazing. It's great. It's, he even wanted the same things, but a part of me said, no, like this, you know what? It might be good now, but I saw in 10 years, 20 years, it's going to hit a wall and it's going to, it's going to end up in a divorce. And so my dad would say, well, you skipped the divorce, right? But to end a relationship,
the divorce.
But to end a relationship when you're not bad, to stop something when it's not at its worst, because you have the vision to know it's not going to really work out, it hurts. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. It actually hurts. But sometimes the best decisions for us don't feel good. They don't always result in good emotions. They can result in bad emotions, and it's sticking with them. It's sticking to that breakup. So after that breakup, I was a little bit rattled, and I thought, oh no, and I remember he even thought, he was a little bit older, well, I have to start all over again. We just spent all this time growing a relationship. He thought, I'm in my late 20s. I'm ready. I'm established. I want to get married. I want to have kids. And so it was a bit of a shake, right? But it wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the biggest dilemma. I got over it. And once again, it always comes back to.
Did he get over it?
He did. Yeah. He got married. He has 4 kids.
Four kids.
4 kids. Yeah.
He got over it real fast.
Yeah. Like, I think he's I think he knew what he wanted, and it was fine. It worked out for everyone. I think that when we're in the midst of heartbreak, we think, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. And you know what? It only opens the doors, right? Because when you close that one door, you're now opening multiple.
What would your 65-year-old self tell you today?
I think my 65-year-old self would say, don't get ahead of yourself. You have a lot more to learn. And I think that overall, I would be proud of myself as to where I've come, but I don't think we ever stop learning. And I think it's very foolish for anyone, even at 70, to say, I know everything now. None of us know everything. And, even my son is teaching me things. There's even things that I have to stop and say, wow, he taught me a lesson today, and I need to grow from that lesson.
You're fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your life story and your business story and your love story with us. Really, really appreciate it. It's been interesting.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Remind us what the website is people would go to if they want to access your services.
It's NCAmentor.com.
NCAmentor.com. Vanessa, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Thank you. What a fascinating conversation. And, I wanted to introduce her to you because I think she really has become wise at a very young age and has experienced ups and downs. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody.